Beyond Fiction, Prologue Chapter, Chaos Theory. 5 minutes following Kibo's sacrifice. The static of the television screen paints a solitary room in a dismal light. A figure sits cross-legged on a computer chair, rocking back and forth nervously. This was the result they had wanted, but not the one they had ever expected. And now they had to face the current reality. It was proving to be more difficult than they had imagined it would be. Many variables ran through their brain, all of them risky. There was a knock at the door. "Akira, open up! Things are getting really heated, man. Talk to me!" A high voice called out as it banged on the door incessantly. The figure, Akira, reluctantly reached over and tapped a button on his desk. A clicking sound signified that the door had been unlocked. It burst open, a stout young man rushing into the room with an exasperated expression. His arms flailed around wildly as he spoke. "What are you doing, man? This is it! This was the plan, wasn't it?" he exclaimed, jabbing his finger at the television screen. The young man in the chair had messy blue hair and sunken eyes. He had a very homely appearance, wearing a black graphic t-shirt over a long-sleeve black and blue striped top, simple black sweatpants with white vertical lines, and no socks. He preferred his feet to be allowed to breathe. This shady youth was Akira Tsuchiya, and he was just now coming to terms with the fact that he might have changed the world as he knew it. Give me a minute, Keigo. Damn it," he stuttered nervously. The shorter boy shook the other's shoulders. "They don't have a minute! They're gonna be swarming them any moment now! Are we still on?" Keigo demanded, his expression uncertain. Akira took a deep breath before kicking the chair closer to the desk. He cracked his knuckles and started whisking away at his keyboard. His eyes scanned all 5 of his monitors, keeping track of every piece of data that passed by it. He had to work fast, to take responsibility for what he had done. 2 months prior. "Wait up!" Keigo yelled, trying his best to keep up with his taller companion. The short man wore a brown hoodie with gray cargo pants, his hair fluffed up in a big green cloud of curls. He was not the most inconspicuous individual by any means, but anything less would have sizzled his blaze, as he might have said. Akira steadily made his way up the hill, carrying a large sack on his back. His face was as determined as it was nervous. He had dragged Keigo out here in the middle of the night and had neglected to mention the intricate details of what they were doing. "No time," he barked. "It's gonna be here any minute now." "What, the truck already?" Keigo yammered in disbelief. The 2 of them placed their bags at the top of the hill and started unpacking various things. Akira tossed a pair of goggles to Keigo. "Here, keep lookout," he instructed. Keigo activated the thermal function and stuck the device to his eyes, peering out to one side of the highway in front of them. "What am I supposed to be looking out for?" he whined. A big Monaco logo on the side, 16 heat signatures in the trailer. Come on, use your head," Akira answered, rifling through his pack, checking for everything he would need. "My head is for spinning discs, not whatever this is," Keigo remarked. "Look, I need you to do recon tonight, okay? I'll make it worth your while," Akira suggested, looking over a piece of equipment. "You always say that. Just because you're in charge of the building doesn't mean you can just drag me out on these... I see it, it's coming down the freeway," Keigo shouted, passing Akira the goggles. With his own eyes, he verified it. The cargo truck was peeking over the horizon. He had precious little time left to prepare. Akira tossed the goggles back along with an earpiece. "Take this so we stay in touch. I'm leaving you the laptop. When I'm gone, take a cab to this address," he said, jotting something down on a scrap of paper and shoving it into Keigo's hand. "Wait, gone? Where are you he asked, but his question was almost immediately answered. Akira zipped up the pack, slung it over his shoulders, and made a dash for the highway, pulling on a pair of thick gloves as he ran. He took a deep breath as his legs kept going, not letting himself lose any momentum. As he leapt straight into traffic, he pushed out his hands desperately and managed to slam them onto the wall of the semi-trailer. The dormant neon lines in the gloves activated as they secured themselves to the truck. Akira lifted up his legs and pressed them against the wall, breathing a sigh of relief. Speaking into his earpiece mic, he declared, "Okay, I'm on the truck." "Yeah, I can see that, dude! What the Keigo yelled, a nearby foghorn cutting him off. Couldn't quite catch that. Anyway, making my way to the underside, he replied as he carefully started crawling down beneath the truck. Thankfully, there was plenty of space between the bottom of the trailer and the rapidly moving asphalt that threatened to sandpaper his face off should he touch it. Isn't it, really hot under those? Keigo inquired. Normally, Akira answered, grabbing hold of the pipes below. But this is a cryo freezer, and the exhaust is on top. He positioned himself on top of several interlacing pipes like it was a makeshift hammock. Okay, I'm calling that cab now. The Hitsugazi Hotel, right? Keigo asked, his breathing unsteady and terrified. Yeah, rent a room, the higher the better, and set up there, he told him. If I recall right, that hotel is... Keigo began. Yeah, it's on the same block as the facility. They even share the same service tunnels. Though that's all blocked off now. He answered the question he knew was coming. This is a business expense, right? Keigo asked, scared it was coming out of his pay. Sure, Akira stated with an audible gulp. We do have enough for this, right? Keigo asked with the sound of him opening a cab door. Probably, Akira admitted sheepishly. The world's longest sigh ensued from the other end of the line. You realize this is the craziest thing you've ever done, right? Keigo asked, the pinching of his temples audible. Akira gulped nervously as he tried not to look at the ground beneath him. Don't remind me, he muttered. Why are we even doing this? What even happened? Does it have to do with... Keigo started questioning before he was cut off. Yeah, Akira confirmed. Keigo sighed once more. You can't let go, can you? The cold air whipped by as the flashes of passing vehicles lit up the underside of the truck in short, frantic intervals. Akira mentally went over the plan in his head several times as he was carried along the freeway. The setting this year is called the Gifted Inmates Academy, an abandoned educational facility inside one of those old habitation spheres. Apparently it's going to be renovated on-site as the season progresses, Keigo informed him, reading off stolen files. Demand is at an all-time high, I guess, if they aren't even bothering to finish the set before filming, Akira surmised. You really think this is gonna stop it? I mean, I just can't picture it, Keigo said. Let's call it shaking up the formula and seeing what happens, Akira answered, shrugging it off. Geez, all this and you're still gambling. It's gotta happen from within. Probably. If you say so, man. After some time, the truck diverged from the highway and pulled onto a long dirt road, passing several gated checkpoints. Akira tried to keep his breathing as still as one could reasonably expect when dangling on the underside of a moving vehicle. Eventually, the truck came to a stop inside some kind of loading bay. Akira could hear the driver and his coworker exit the cabin and walk around the side of the cryo unit. They were laughing boisterously as they threw open the doors. I'm telling you, man, one of these chicks has massive honkers, you'll see, one of the employees bragged. 99 centimeters, measured it myself for the log. His fellow let out a chuckle. What, you feeling him up while they were doing that too? You want some alone time? They commented dismissively. The driver slugged him on the arm. Man, fuck off, he replied jovially. One by one, the cryopods were loaded out of the truck and wheeled into another chamber. The employees joked along as they hooked up various cables and began the reprogramming sequence from a terminal. When they were finished, which took nearly an hour, they checked out the back exit, locking the door behind them. Poking his head out to make sure the coast was clear, Akira finally slid out from under the trailer, cracking his now stiff neck. He glanced over at the door to the storage chamber, noticing it was under a keypad lock. He tapped his earpiece and began to speak. Okay, finally ready to move. You set up yet? He said. Yeah, just a sec, Keiko responded nervously. I've already pre-cracked the camera feed. You should be able to see me now, Gieta told him. Keiko was currently setting up a laptop in front of a wide window of his hotel room, issuing a command to open the facility's security camera feed. Akira gave him a half-hearted wave from the other side as a check. Okay, yeah, I got you. Isn't this a problem, though? You're on their feed, he told him. We're replacing this with a loop. It's gonna be fine, Akira reassured him, making his way to the door. The keypad required a 5-digit code to open the door. Under most circumstances, Akira would have simply hacked the device, but he felt it was unnecessary in this case. Without any hesitation, he simply entered 11037.
Access granted.
he mocked under his breath. Tradition trumps proper security.
Really? That's like the Danganronpa equivalent of leaving your password as password,
Keigo commented over the mic. Akira pulled open the door and slipped into the storage chamber, a long hall of ostensible human trophies. 8 pods lined the walls on both sides, with a single computer terminal overseeing them all. He took a quick stroll around the room, noting all the future contestants with a melancholy demeanor. Heh, cute girls, cool guys. It's a Danganronpa cast, all right, he mused apathetically. His feet stopped at one pod in particular, looking into the frosted glass with peculiar interest. Akira crossed his arms and sighed, shaking his head. So, you actually went and signed up, huh? He muttered.
You know one of those guys?
Keigo asked.
Not anymore,
he answered coldly, leering at the display panel next to the pod. Shuichi Saihara. That's what they're calling you now, huh? Well, it has a ring to it at least, he said, turning away. He didn't have time to look over everyone in detail. They all had their reasons for throwing away their lives. Akira wouldn't judge, but they were about to become his instruments now, in a way. He took a seat at the terminal and began pulling up all the raw data on the reprogramming procedure. The process that would erase their current selves and replace them with newly crafted fictional identities. He couldn't see exactly what that entailed. The interface wasn't user-friendly, to say the least, but he was able to do what he came to do. He started flipping through all the files and rewriting variables at random. Not by huge amounts, but enough to throw off the delicate balance they were attempting. It was impossible to tell from this alone how they would be altered from the original intention. Perhaps in big, obvious ways, maybe in small, subtle ways. Akira suspected nobody would know until it snowballed into something even greater. That was the idea, at any rate, he had told himself. To throw off the game in ways not even its overseers would recognize until it was too late for them to intervene. There was some warning that popped up about how the subjects might awaken earlier than scheduled due to a syntax error, but Akira dismissed it as unimportant. Even if it caused some confusion, he was sure they'd just pop them right back in to finish the reprogramming process. It was difficult for him to know when to stop altering the code, but after a while, he decided it appeared sufficiently different from the starting points, so he exited the compiler and stood up to his feet.
Okay, but now what? How are you going to get out of there? There's 20-meter fences surrounding the entire facility, and not to mention roving patrols,
Keigo warned.
You know those old service tunnels?
Akira inquired.
Oh, don't tell me,
Keigo shot back. Akira only smirked as he made his way back through the loading bay and through several winding hallways. Chrome with black tint, creating a futuristic and oppressive atmosphere. Every now and then he passed a small statue of Monokuma on a pedestal, looking smug in some cartoonish pose.
Hey, this has been pretty easy, right? Am I alone in thinking that? Why is security so lax here?
Keigo asked, his eyes darting over the screen, paranoid about any sudden complications. Akira slid down a ventilation access port and pulled it open with the maintenance lever, being careful to close the lid behind him before any night guard happened to walk by. One methodical inch at a time, he began to crawl through the air ducts on all fours.
Well, everyone loves Danganronpa, right? Can't imagine Monaco would ever think someone would even want to sabotage it,
Akira reasoned.
I can't even imagine it. Why are we even doing this? I thought you were as big a fan as anyone,
Keigo shot back. Akira did not respond. He simply kept crawling, keeping his thoughts to himself. One day Keigo would understand. Until then, it was better to just leave it be. He reached a cross-section that led further down. It was awkward and uncomfortable to twist himself around enough to step foot into the service ladder. Climbing down, he had to wipe his palms against his jacket. They were understandably sweaty from the adrenaline rush he was feeling right now, masking any fear. Dropping down onto the concrete floor of the tunnel, he suddenly heard a noise that he didn't expect, and without warning, his palms got way sweatier in an instant. For what he heard was growling. Jerking his head backward as fast as possible, he saw them. A pair of ravenous-looking hounds looking up from their recently finished meal with enraged eyes. Without thinking, Akira bolted in the opposite direction as quickly as his unfit nerd legs would carry him. It took everything he had not to scream as the dogs gave chase through the bleak service tunnel. Steam filled the chamber from vents along the walls, obscuring his vision as he continued onward. The dogs growled and howled as they started gaining on the boy with their superior speed. Akira reached back and dug around in his backpack for the one thing that might be able to save him. He had brought it along for emergencies just like this, although he had imagined using it on a person and not a canine. But just as he managed to find it, one of said canines tackled him to the ground, causing the object to fall just out of reach.
What's happening? Akira, answer me!
Keigo screamed in his ear. Akira mentally wished he would shut up so he could focus, reaching for the object desperately as the dog took a vicious bite of his leg. He grit his teeth and internally shrieked as his eyes began to water. He could already feel the blood gushing out. He kicked at the dog with his other leg to no avail, so he started kicking at the wall instead, trying to propel himself further away. These dogs would chew him apart in mere seconds. He needed to grab the— "Fuck yes!" he shouted in a rage as he obtained and thrust the object at the dog's neck. With the press of a button, the dog's eyes bulged out of its skull and it instinctively let go of the boy's leg. A second later, it was lying on the ground unconscious, drool spilling over the floor. Akira leapt to his feet and waved the device at the other dog as it approached and skidded to a stop. "You want a piece of this, you fucking mutt?" he called out, holding the weapon out before him with a warning click. The dog was not capable of sensing the danger beyond a surface level, so it simply ignored its fallen compatriot and rushed at the boy fang first. Akira swung underhand and connected the device to the hound's soft underbelly. The reaction was similar as it fell to the ground, writhing in pain before passing out. Akira stumbled over and gave both dogs a vindictive kick to their ugly faces as he spat on them. He suddenly collapsed to the ground and scooted his back against the wall. Hesitantly, he tapped his earpiece.
I'm here. Fuck, this hurts!
Akira groaned as he took several deep breaths. Apparently, adrenaline could only carry one so far in these situations.
What happened? There aren't any cameras down there, so I couldn't see.
Keigo explained in a panic.
Fucking dogs. They have fucking dogs down here. One of them bit me good. I managed to knock them out, though. Thank fuck.
Akira grunted out the words with a wince, pulling up his pant leg to see the damage. Blood was pouring down his leg from multiple puncture points. Akira pulled out a roll of gauze from his pack, another thing he had hoped he wouldn't have to use. He hastily wrapped it around his shin and cut it off tight. He took a good look at the stun gun in his hand, and was ever so grateful he brought it along. After a moment's rest, he picked himself up and started limping down the tunnel towards the hotel. There were obstacles, of course. He had to force himself under a chain-link fence and pick the lock on an old door, but otherwise there was no issue. After that, it was a simple matter of sneaking through the hotel basement until he reached the elevator. Once he found Keigo's room, he simply collapsed on the ground after opening the door. "Akira, hold on!" Keigo shouted in concern as he hoisted the boy on his tiny shoulder and dragged him onto the bed. The most surprising thing was that Akira was grinning like a madman as he lay there in pain. He had done his part. The rest was up to them. As for what would happen next, the entire world would have to wait and see. Those were his last thoughts as he passed out from exertion. Keigo shook his head as he closed the laptop lid. Why did I ever get stuck with someone this insane? He pondered to himself. He hadn't always been like this, but lately. Present time. Meanwhile, in the wreckage of the Gifted Inmates Academy, a small black orb began to glow in ominous white light. Whatever it meant, whatever it was, it would surely be important. Chapter 0. End.